Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and this is the DETHONRAY Clarinet. This is a $200 battery-powered portable DAC and headphone amplifier all-in-one unit. This was sent to me directly from Anson at DETHONRAY. He has answered a couple of technical questions for me, but has been very careful not to color my opinion on this piece in one way or the other, so all thoughts that you are about to hear on this are mine and mine alone. The link down in the description where you can buy this from AliExpress is not an affiliate link. That is the link that Anson asked me to post so that you can get the best deal on this device. This, of course, at $200 is the non-tariff pricing. The Trump administration's pricing or tariffs on Chinese goods have started to go into effect and affect us here in the audio world with some price increases. So I don't know what's going to happen to the price of this unit. It might go up slightly from $200. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I rather like this unit, and I am excited to talk to you about it. So let's do all of that right on the other side of shameless self-promotion.
Hello. I'm one of the reasons that Wave Theory can't spend all of his money on audio gear. He wants you to know that your support is vital for keeping the channel running. So if you enjoy Wave Theory's bussin' review riz and no-cap review style and want to encourage him to stay in the basement so I don't have to listen to his dad jokes as much, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also send him a donation on PayPal or sign up for the Patreon. Links are in the description. Now on to the review.
Alright, so here is the Clarinet, and we will do this kind of quasi-overhead view here for this review, just because it's easier to see a portable device that way. And again, as I said at the top, I like this device quite a bit. In terms of sonics, I think it sounds really good. The audio performance you get out of this for $200 is excellent, and honestly, the sound on this can rival some $200 desktop DAC amps, okay, in there, which we'll discuss as the review unfolds. There are a few ergonomic quirks to talk about too in terms of actually using it as a portable device and so forth. So we will get into all of that here as the review progresses. A few quick tech specs on this thing. Again, $200 for this. The DAC in it is built around an AKM 4493S DAC chip. It is capable of decoding PCM files up to 32-bit 384 kilohertz sampling rates and DSD files up to DSD 256 if you connect this via the USB input. There is a coaxial or an SPDIF input on this, which I will show you in a moment, which is a combination of coaxial optical on it, I do believe, okay, there, and that is capable of receiving PCM files up to 24-bit 96 kilohertz. There are two headphone outputs on it, 4.4 millimeter and 3.5 millimeter. Both of them are spec'd to output 2 volts RMS of power maximum. I asked Anson at DETHONRAY if there was a difference between these two outputs other than their size, and he said no, there really shouldn't be, and so I mostly agree with that. I'll talk about that more in the sound section here as the review unfolds as well. So I mean, that's a lot of the specs here. The battery life is rated at 7 hours and the battery capacity is rated at 1600 milliamp hours in there. So I mean, not tremendous battery life in there, but also not terrible either. All right, so there are a couple of firmware updates, like recently, about a month before I filmed this review, there was some firmware updates released. So if you get this unit, you may want to update the firmware rather quickly. Said firmware helped a little bit with the operation, but there are actually 4 flavors of firmware that will change the sound just a little bit on there too. And I didn't check all of them, but those are out there as options. All right, let's go ahead and start diving into like the build and other details here. So it is a battery-powered portable DAC and headphone amplifier. It is in this rather nondescript aluminum shell here that has just a little bit of texturing on it, and then you see the name Clarinet printed there, then you've got like DETHONRAY printed on the back and so forth. We have this nice knurled and slight, and different colored, I don't know what color that is, come on, focus camera, but you have this knurled power and volume knob here that makes a nice satisfying click when you turn it on. and then again when you turn it off. And the feel of this knob is actually pretty nice in terms of like the resistance to turning and so forth and there. All right, the weight of this unit is not particularly high, but one of the ergonomic quirks that I want to talk about with it is that these corners are kind of sharp. Okay, they just, you know, sliding it in and out of a pocket, these corners can catch on things. If you go to grab this unit and you catch that corner, it can poke you a little bit. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more rounded edges on this thing to take a little bit of the bite off of touching those things. And again, because you slide that into a pocket, they can catch all of that. I did scratch myself on this once when it was on my desktop and I dragged my arm across it. That didn't feel particularly good. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind there if you're in the market for it and so forth there. Okay, and so that's like ergonomic complaint number one that I have. Let's go ahead and do the unit tour. On the bottom of the unit here, we see that we have, okay, come on camera, you can focus, I believe in you, stupid phone camera. Okay, anyway, we have a gain switch high and low here for the amplifier in there. We have one USB-C port right here for charging, and this is also the port that you use for firmware updates to connect to a computer for that purpose. And then we have the USB DAC or data port here. So if you want to plug this into a computer or a smartphone or an iPad, okay, an iPad there, to transfer music files or play music and all of that and access the DAC, you would use that right there. The other side panels basically have nothing on them. Okay, then here we have the top panel where that volume knob and power switch is, and then you've got the two flavors of headphone output with the 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced and 3.5 millimeter single-ended right there. And then we have a multi-function input right here, which my camera is refusing to focus on the little lettering there, so that's another part of this, is that the lettering on there, it does not stand out all that much. Okay, on it. But anyway, it says coax/optical on it. So that is the mini SPDIF input that can accept either a 3.5 millimeter coax connection or SPDIF connection or a mini Toast-Lake optical connection. Included in the packaging when you get this unit is this nice little adapter here, which is RCA connector there and 3.5 millimeter TRS. This is for using an adaptation to a coax cable there. If you're going to get one of these, it does have to be TRS. I tried TS cable and TS adapter to RCA. It did not work in either case, so the TRS is the one that worked there in that case. So don't lose that thing, or make sure that you have another one around. Okay, we also have indicator lights here and like power and charge indicator lights there, and then like sample rate indicator LED there, if you will, on that one. Okay, so then back to that build and like the sharp corner things and all of that, like that kind of brings me to the next point. I didn't find any like carrying cases made for this device. If this came with a carrying case that rounded off these edges, that would be nice. So like Anson and DETHONRAY, let's see you get on that, please, or maybe a third party out there somewhere. If there is enough of a market to support such a thing, that would be nice. The next thing that I want to talk about, though, is like the positioning of the inputs and the outputs and how that relates to being able to like use this on the go. So let's say you connect this via USB and you do your USB data here, and I got my iPad right there, and I don't think you'd use an iPad this way, but pretend that's a smartphone, okay, if you will. Sorry for the camera bump there. And then you have your IEM or your headphone in that's going to plug in on this side. Look at the additional wiring here. How are you going to fit this in your pocket? So the positioning on the opposite ends of the USB data port and the headphone output there, I think also is another ergonomic challenge in terms of being able to use this on the go. Even if you take your smartphone and you plop it on here, like this is not a smartphone, this is a DAP, but same kind of thing. Even if you were to plop that on there and put rubber bands around this thing, you know, you still to some degree are going to have the USB cable coming from this device, okay, around into that device, and then your headphone plug is going to be on the other end. So even if you turn this around like this and you use a short USB, you still have plugs on either side of the device there that you're going to have to take into account. And so that's not necessarily pocket friendly. So in a future iteration of this device, I think I would like to see these ports, like, I don't know, maybe moved up here, maybe not on opposite ends. I don't know exactly how I would do it there. I mean, I understand why it is this way. I'm just saying that in terms of putting this in your pocket on the go and walking around with it, that's a challenge. Now, you can alleviate that somewhat if you get a device like this iBasso DX180 here, where you can set the 3.5mm output to SPDIF if you want, because then the SPDIF connector is on the same end as the headphone connector. So that's one way around that. But then if you want to listen to higher bitrate PCM files or DSD or anything like that on the go, you are going to lose that ability, okay, by using the coax connection there. Okay. The DX180 is going to show up again in a minute, so I'm going to leave it there here for the time being. So those are the ergonomic quirks that I want to talk about, at least in terms of like the usage. There's a couple of them there, and that's just the sharpness of the corners with not really a good way to alleviate that. And then the plugs on the opposite ends kind of make this not really pocketing friendly. Okay. The other ergonomic thing that I want to talk about here is the USB connection here itself. And this could honestly be the fault of RuneArc. RuneArc does not like connecting to this thing via USB. It, at least with my, at least from my Android devices, my Galaxy S22 Plus smartphone is what's doing the filming right now. And that device will only see the Clarinet as a device capable of up to 24-bit 48 kilohertz decoding. No DSD, no 88.2 kilohertz, no 96 kilohertz, no 192 kilohertz, nothing like that. It just tops out there on that, and I can't get it to not do that. Now, RuneArc on my iPad sees it just fine, and will output all of the fun bit rates and file types and all that, like DSD and all of that, into this as well. If I use the Mango player on the iBasso here via USB, that worked fine. The Mango operating system on the DX260, iBasso DX260, again connected here via USB, also worked fine, and so forth. So, like, there's just the USB connection on this sometimes doesn't like connecting to some devices. I plug this into Ottervana on my Windows 10 Surface Pro 4 laptop. And that also only recognized this as a 24-bit 48 kilohertz top out thing here, PCM, no DSD or anything like that, until I installed the ASIO driver. That is the same driver as the DETHONRAY Listening M1 DAC amp, which I have reviewed previously. I'll put a link down in the description. But using that driver for this, then all of the Windows-based devices would send this all of the fun file types to, or all the fun data types there as well. But just like that USB connection thing in there just had a couple of quirks in it, and that's like ergonomic complaint number 3. All right, now let's get to the fun stuff, which is sound, and to do that, we'll talk about test gear. You see, like the sources that I use those 2 iBasso units that I showed you. I used my iPad connected via USB into this. I used the DX180's coax SPDIF output into the SPDIF input on here too, using those that adapter that I just showed you, this one here, okay? Just a fairly standard El Cheapo coax cable I got on Amazon, and then a TS adapter plug there to go into the iBasso. Why did I not use the DX260? Well, I learned through this process that the SPDIF output on my DX260 is not working. I don't know why, but the DX180 worked fine as an output, and so I tried that into here as well. And Anson suggested to me that he thought that the coax input might actually offer an improvement in sound over the USB, and I partially agree with that. So we'll come back to that in a little bit as well. Most of my listening on time with this was the out-of-the-box firmware. there were firmware updates in like February 13th-ish of 2025, I think. And I filmed this in mid-March of 2025. So most of the time I did this with just the out-of-the-box firmware, but I did recently update the firmware in this to the rock version of the firmware, which Anson says has a mild V-shape to the sound signature in it, and but then there are 3 other firmware options in there that have slightly different sound flavors to them as well. So pick the one you like, but I ended up on the rock one just because he described that one as being a little bit more vivid, having a little bit more like clarity to it, and then again being slightly V-shaped, and those were all things that I thought sounded fun, and I listened to a lot of rock, so I used that too. Okay, full-size headphones that I tried.